I'm going to show you how to make the most amazing caramel pumpkin bread pudding that's easy to make, and it's going to show you that bread pudding does not have to be made with stale bread. I'm going to show you a way to make the best, richest bread pudding you've ever had. It's a tradition at my house and at the restaurant, so please check it out. Hey everyone, today is pumpkin caramel bread pudding. I'm going to show you how to do it. It's not hard, it's easy to follow. It's got a couple of steps, but everything is very doable. So we're going to start with this awesome Hawaiian bread. You see this just about everywhere, in every supermarket. What's Hawaiian bread? It's sort of like a sweet roll. I use it at the restaurant for sliders. It's very eggy and brioche-like. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to cut it. We're making a custard. That's basically kind of what bread pudding is. It's a custard that has bread in it. And in order for it to be sort of the same texture throughout, we're going to cut it. It doesn't have to be perfect. As you see, I'm using a knife that's a bread knife. It's one of those that sits in your collection and you never use. So this is the time to get it out and use it. I'm going to cut the bread lengthwise like this. This is 12 units of the Hawaiian bread. And then we're going to come down this way. We're doing little chunks of about ½ inch squares. And then we're going to flip it all over. And then we're going to cut it this way. And we're going to do the same thing with all the bread. If you end up with one chunk that's a little bit bigger than another one, it's fine. It's not that big of a deal. It's all going to be soaked in this egg, French toasty kind of custard. So if you think of French bread really is sort of like a quick version of bread pudding, in my opinion. So that's what I'm making here. Some people think, oh, bread pudding, that's going to be complicated, but it really isn't. It's just bread, eggs, cream, milk, and some other, spices that make, we're using something called pumpkin spice, or it's actually called pumpkin pie spice, which is a mixture of cinnamon, clove, and nutmeg. But as you see, our bread is all cut up. Don't judge me. Some pieces are a little bit bigger than others, but that's fine. Because like I said, it's going to be mixed in here with the milk. So if you notice something like a monster piece, you can just stir it with your hands, it's fine. Here we have 1 cup of milk. To the cup of milk, we're going to add 1 cup of cream. And I have my measuring cup. It's like a really big measuring cup. You can just use your cup of coffee if you know it's 8 ounces, because 1 cup is 8 ounces, correct? We're going to add 8 ounces of the cream. This is going to make it more holiday-like, which means kind of more rich, right? So we're going to add the cream in there. And this is a good time to use your spatula because there's a little bit of cream left there. And you already paid for it, so you might as well use it. So we're going to get our cream in there. In here, we're going to add all our wet ingredients. And we have 6 eggs right here. We're going to crack them. When you crack an egg, you don't want to crack it on the edge of your bowl, because if you do so and you get an eggshell piece in here, it's going to be kind of like a, pain to try to fish it out. So you want to crack it somewhere else. Some people crack their eggs in a little bowl and then dump them because they want to make sure they're good and sometimes there's blood clots in there, because remember, this is going to be a chicken someday. Not anymore, but so some people do that. I haven't had that happen to me really. Maybe I've probably cracked, 10,000 eggs in my life. There's probably been 1 or 2 of those that happen. So I'm going to take a chance and crack them inside the bowl. But I crack them away from my bowl. And then the shells, I always tend to have a bowl or a container or something that I use as a little trash can while I'm cooking, so you don't have to be stepping away and throwing things in the trash. I learned that from my friend Rachel Ray, who I don't even know personally. But if you're out there, Rachel Ray, and you want to say hi, please go ahead. Chef Luis Sanchez over here. Cracking eggs. We have 2 eggs. Like I said, we're doing 6 eggs. And this is something that you can get your kids involved. And for some reason, my 4-year-old loves cracking eggs. So, and the worst that can happen is that, you get an egg on the counter and then you just clean it up. But you have a cool memory of cooking with your children, right? So we have 5 in there. I'm going to add the 6th one in there. So remember, so far we have cream, milk, and eggs. Nothing complicated. Here we have ½ cup of melted butter that I just put it on a pan, and it's regular unsalted melted butter, and I just let it cool inside this little cup. because if I pour it hot into the eggs, it might create some sort of a scrambled egg, and we don't want that kind of texture. So we're gonna dump it in there. And we're gonna add our sweetness, which is 1 cup of, isn't that cute? That's my daughter's cup. 1 cup of sugar. And to that, we're gonna add 1 tablespoon of vanilla. And in this case, when you go to the store, there's something called imitation vanilla. The word imitation means it's not real. So let's try to spend the money on something like real vanilla. So this is what that is. It is going to cost you a little bit of money. Imitate. You just got to wonder, how do they make vanilla out of something that's not vanilla? Well, I don't know. So we're going to add 1 tablespoon of that. This is a teaspoon, so I added a little bit of extra in there. And then we're going to add 1 ounce of brandy. You can leave this ingredient out if you want to. If you have dark rum, that will work. And then 1 ounce, it's going to be right about 3.5 of this spoon. This part does not have to be exact. These are flavoring. So if you love your brandy, you can add more. If you love your vanilla, you can add more. And if you love this pumpkin pie spice, if you love those flavors, you can add more. And I do love those flavors because they don't come around until this time of the year, right? So we're going to add the equivalent of 1 teaspoon here. And then the cool thing, and the ingredient that makes this a pumpkin caramel bread pudding is pumpkin. So here we have pumpkin puree. They come in 15-ounce cans. This is an organic version I got at Trader Joe's. Your supermarket will have it. It's already pureed. It's already ready to use. So all I did was just take it out of the can. You can go and roast the pumpkins and then puree the pumpkins. But in this case, I have not tasted much difference between what I roasted myself and this canned product. So sometimes canned stuff is good. Not very good with, like, for me, not very good with like green beans, or what did I have that was pretty bad? Oh, potatoes. Who cans potatoes? Potatoes are like 20 cents a potato. So I would stay away from canned things that you can get like literally next to the aisle. But certain things that are more available and save you time, it does make sense. So if you can see here, it doesn't look like much yet. We have the butter, we have the pumpkin spice, we have the pumpkin puree, the eggs, the cream, and the milk, and oh yeah, one thing. I'm going to walk off camera for a second. I forgot. Pinch of salt. What does salt do? Salt is the one thing that makes your food taste, in a weird way, sweeter. Because every once in a while, you're going to get a little speck of salt. And then right after, of course, because it's a sweet thing, you're going to get the sweetness in your mouth. And you'll be like, oh, that's so tasty. Because it sort of like plays off of each other. So that, I think, is my best explanation of why we put salt on sweet things. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. But I'm going to stick with my story. So here we are just making this mixture. We're cracking the eggs. And what we want to do here, like my chef used to tell me at chef school, is when you scramble eggs, you want to mix them until you no longer see the yolk versus the egg white. It all looks like one thing. So here we're doing the same thing. We just want it to look like one thing, right? It almost looks like eggnog, which I've never made, but I imagine it's pretty close to what we're doing here. All right, everyone. I want to make you be able to see what's going on here. See, it's runny. There's a lot of mixture in there because we don't want, or I'm not a huge fan of bread pudding that tastes like just bread. It should taste like a custard. It should be something that you cut in. And don't get me wrong, I love the crust part of it, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. But I want it to be runny and velvety, and we're going to cook this and cool it down. I shouldn't be telling you this yet, but we're going to cook it, cool it down, and then we're going to warm it up to order, because I love a warm bread pudding. And if we get fancy and we have time, maybe we'll go get some ice cream and we'll serve it with that. But I'll show you that when we get there. So our custard is nicely mixed. Now we're going to throw in our bread. And that basically is what I'm doing right now. It's just adding the bread to our custard mix. And if you're wondering, why is this called caramel bread pudding or caramel pumpkin bread pudding, and we haven't seen any caramel action, it's because at this point, while this awesomeness is soaking and they're getting like to know each other, they're out on their first date, and maybe there'll be a second date. But bread and the egg mixture is they're just getting together, right? They're just talking, and they know that together they're going to work out just fine. We're gonna let it sit for a while, and while that's happening, when we come back, I'm gonna show you how to make the caramel, which is really easy and you can use it in so many ways. All right, guys, we'll see you guys in 1 second. All right, caramel. This is the other part of our bread pudding. A lot of people are weirded out about caramel, or they think it's very difficult, or oh my god, I'm gonna burn myself. And yes, sugar, trust me on this one, if you touch melted sugar, you are going to be hurting for a while. So there's a few things that we can do here. So we have a cup of sugar, and this is a non-stick pan. For that awesome person that was asking me what kind of pans I use, this is the time in which I use a non-stick pan. I'm gonna put the sugar in the middle. So I created a mound of sugar in the middle. And something that I was taught at one of the restaurants I worked at was, you could melt it like this and it's fine, but something that gives you a little more assurance that it's not gonna burn on you, it's a little bit of water. And you throw a little bit of water, and I'm talking maybe 2-3 ounces, around the little mound of sugar so you can see that. So the water is gonna heat up and it's gonna sort of more carefully or gently melt the sugar for you. We're gonna melt the sugar. How much do we melt the sugar? This is a time in which I'm very proud of the Latin and I have dark skin. So if we can get a close-up of my skin color, you want to sort of go to where this skin color is. The person that taught me how to make caramel, there was this beautiful girl. Her name is Tekka, and if you're watching Tekka, this goes for you. And she was part of our crew, and then she goes, "Oh, you want to melt the sugar until we get to her skin color." So I remember you every time I make caramel, Tekka, out in San Diego. Hello, how are you? Good talking to you through the camera. So we're gonna go ahead and melt this sugar now. Once we get to that skin color, like cool brown skin color, then we're gonna add cream to this, and then it's gonna look a little scary for about 3 seconds because you're gonna have to whisk it in really fast, and then we're gonna sort of flavor it with a little bit of butter and a little bit of salt. And with the salt, it's the same thing that we talked about. Salt is going to bring sort of the sweetness of the caramel. And so the next shot, magically, we're going to appear over there on top of the fire, and I'm going to show you how to do the whole thing. All right. So we're making our caramel. As you can see in here, the water is still sort of melting, and this is a whisk. And don't use the whisk. Right now, it's not the time to go in there and start messing with it. I prefer to let sugar do its thing. You have the water there that's going to protect you. So it is going to take maybe 4 or 5 minutes. So this is patience time, but it's not the patience time that allows you to go check on your email or go do something in the other room or finish your favorite Netflix show. So you're going to stick around here. Maybe clean up around or whatever you want to do, but do not walk away from your kitchen when you have caramel boiling, especially if you have little ones or even pets, I guess. So we're going to wait. We're going to do this at about medium heat, and eventually it's going to start happening. The only thing I'm going to allow you to do is to do this, in which we are sort of breaking it down without going in with utensils. The theory here is that supposedly a dirty utensil is going to mess up your caramel. So I haven't had that happen really, but it's one of those things that you learn from someone and it worked for you and you've never really tested any other way, so I'm sticking with it. If you have a better way to make caramel, please go ahead and do it. If you feel that, like right now you see how it's kind of clumping up a little bit, that's fine because it's going to eventually melt if you keep doing this. I'm going to try not to talk while I'm shaking this because I'm sure you're not hearing, so I'm going to be quiet for a second. The sugar in the middle now, it's starting to melt. If you see that it's not melting, you can still save it by adding a little bit of water. But so far we're good. It just takes a while. So our sugar is finally completely dissolved. Now it's just a matter of waiting for our caramel to get to the color that we want. It's kind of a cool thing because a great caramel is very close to tasting like, I guess, almost burnt, but you want to pull, or like that's exactly where you want to. It's almost like it should have a sense of like fireplace or like I don't know, camping kind of food without it being like, oh my god, this is burnt. So in order to do that, it's almost like, again, you want to play to see how far you like it, but it should not be like a pale color, like a pale brown color. It should be like a rich brown color, and that's going to make it taste so much better. So right now we're still at that sort of pure white color, and like I said, it's going to take, from this point on, it's probably going to take another 3 or 4 minutes. So we're going to revisit when we're closer to being there. And remember, once we get to the point that we want to do, the order in which we're going to do things is we're going to add the cream, we're going to whisk. That's why the whisk is here. It's not for this part. We're going to whisk when the cream goes in, and after the cream is all incorporated. And don't get afraid, because once we put the cold cream into something that's melty and hot, it's all going to come together, but eventually it's going to loosen up again. So don't freak out, don't be throwing things away. Wait, be patient, and you'll see how awesome this tastes. So we'll see you once we get to the color that we want to be. All right, caramel is sort of starting to happen. Color is about 50% of the way. The sugar's melting nicely. My fire is halfway, so it's medium. You don't want to go too high, you don't want to go too low unless you have all the time in the world. But definitely not too high, because it will burn on you. And once it burns, especially if you're inexperienced and your hands are really close, it's going to start bubbling up like lava. And if it lands on your skin, don't come calling me, because you don't have my number. But just in case, don't come asking me what happened, because I'm telling you, keep it at medium. As you see right now, on camera 2, we're fancy here, so we have 2 cameras. On camera 2, it's catching how it's almost an amber color. So I don't think we should cut anymore. I think we should just keep rolling, because we are about a minute away. Just like in anything that you cook, anytime that you're cooking in the kitchen, you want to have things around you that you're going to use next. So this wouldn't be the time in which I go, oh, did I get the cream? Where is it? Oh, no. You want to have your cream next to you, you want to have your whisk next to you, your butter next to you, because as you see, the color is almost there. And I'm talking maybe 10 more seconds. Yeah, it's starting to smell like that, almost like roasting marshmallow kind of smell. At this point, and I have the cream here, and I'm going to risk it a little bit more, and I'm going to go just a little bit darker. Maybe another 10 seconds. And then I'm going to add the cream. So that was 5 seconds, that was 7 seconds, that was 9 seconds, and now we're at 10. So we're in the cream, and this cool reaction is happening where it's going to come together, and we're whisking, and we're whisking, and we're whisking, and soon we're going to turn the fire off. But the color is awesome. Once we have the cream all incorporated in there, we're going to turn the fire off, because the heat of the sugar is going to keep cooking this caramel. If you like a thicker caramel, then by all means keep cooking it and keep whisking. But for what we're doing, in which we're drizzling this inside our recipe for the bread pudding, we just want to take it to this point. So at this point, we're going to add our butter. This is about 1 tablespoon of unsalted butter. And then once again, you don't need to turn the fire on. The heat of the sugar is going to cook or melt the butter in this case. And we are going to do 1 good pinch. And what a good pinch means is as much as 2 of my fingers hold of salt. If you have little tiny fingers, then maybe do 2 pinches. So that's it. Our caramel is done. We do not want to add this hot into our mixture, because it would once more start cooking the egg. So we're going to let this cool, and I'll see you back in the counter over there while I mix my caramel here. It's going to cool down, and then we're going to finish up the recipe. All right, welcome back. And here we are with our pumpkin bread pudding mixture, and here is the awesome caramel that I just showed you how to make. It's cooled down, so it's gotten a little bit thicker. So now we're going to add not all the caramel in here, because we don't want to be greedy, and we also want to save some for the final presentation, in which we might or might not include some ice cream in it. So we're going to drizzle this in our mixture, and the idea here is sort of like, you know, I don't know if you have, or you definitely have probably tasted or seen a marble cake, where you see the little swirls of whatever the other ingredient is. So that's kind of what we're doing with the caramel. So we want to mix it in there, don't get me wrong, but we want to be able, we're not going to whisk it or something where it sort of disappears. We want to see our caramel in there. So we want to save a couple of tablespoons of it. So we're going to add about 2/3 of the mixture in there. Once it's in there, we're going to save this for later, and we're going to just mix it in a way that we can still see a little bit of the swirl. Another important part of bread pudding is the way that we cook it. So here I have 2 pans that I've greased. What does that mean? It means that I put a little bit of butter on a paper towel. Melted butter might be a little bit easier, or softened butter actually would be probably the best way to do it. And you're just going to rub it. You're going to rub it in all the sides. And what is that going to do, Luis? Well, that's going to keep it away from sticking, because the last thing you want to do is cut this up and then force it out or the bread pudding to be, you know, half out and half stuck to it. So we want to ultimately flip this over and then cut it into portions. So that's why you grease things. And then the other part or cool thing about cooking anything with eggs, really like quiche or soufflés, is that we use a technique called bain-marie. Bain-marie means Mary's bath, I guess, because in Spanish it's baño María. That's my oven telling me that the oven is hot enough to put this in there, so we're gonna go ahead and listen to the song. All right, song's over. This is our bread, what was I saying? Oh, bread pudding caramel, it's all in there. Bain-marie, that's where I was. So bain-marie means cooking something in a way that it doesn't burn the bottom of it. So we're gonna put this awesome little containers into a larger container that's gonna have some hot water. So what that does is sort of like creating a smooth and even cooking area for the egg custard. So now that we have this, we're going to split it into these two containers. These are new containers for me. I haven't used this size, so from the looks of it, I'm going to have some extra, which is fine. We'll just bake another bread pudding. But this amount of bread pudding is probably going to be good for at least 12 guests. If you want it for less people, then make half the recipe, but I would suggest making at least this amount because it's awesome to have leftovers of bread pudding. You want to fill it all the way up to about 2/3 of the way, and then maybe 3/4 of the way. It's going to puff up a little bit, but not that much. So actually, we might have enough. We shouldn't have any leftovers right now. Like anything else, you want to keep it consistent and even. So you want to keep going. See how I didn't just pour everything on one? I poured half and then came back. And that which seems almost like a little game keeps you from putting too much on one and not enough on the other. And I learned that from bartending. So when you make 2 cocktails on a tin, you want to make sure you have enough for the 2. So you want to split it evenly. And that's sort of what I used to do. And how I earned a living for many, many years. So now we have our custard, which is here, and it's runny. It's supposed to be runny because it's gonna cook, right? If it's dry already, then you're gonna have a really dry bread pudding and you're gonna have to put a bunch of whipped cream and ice cream just to make it edible. So our big containers are here. And in this containers, we're gonna add the hot water. So I just use some tap water. I am blessed with a water heater that burns your hand, which is great and not great at the same time. And we're gonna pour about, I wanna say maybe ½ inch of water. You don't need a lot, it's not gonna evaporate on you in the oven. And also you don't need a lot because you don't want it to be so much that when you put your bread pudding in there, then water's gonna get inside. So a couple of ways of doing this. You could do all this like I've seen some people. They open the oven and they pour the hot water in there. I'm really close to the oven here, so and I'm not putting a lot of water in there. So I'm just gonna carry it like this, but by all means, whatever you feel more comfortable with. We're gonna go in the oven just like this. You know your oven. It's gonna take, for my oven at 375, it's gonna take about an hour. If you like it like I do, where you want a little bit of a crust on top, then leave it uncovered. If you like it a little more mushy or soft bread pudding, leave it uncovered for about ½ an hour and then cover it for the last 30 minutes. And then we're gonna take it out, we're gonna let it cool completely, and then we're gonna flip it, and I'm gonna show you that part when we come back. Alright, our bread pudding came out of the oven a little bit ago. I've been letting it sit on an ice bath to sort of just make that process faster, but you don't really have to. And this is a tin that it came in. Remember how we greased the bottom? So the idea here is to flip it. So you just kind of gently pull the sides and you'll get a visual of it kind of coming apart from the sides. And then you get yourself a cutting board. We're going to put it on top. We're going to flip it and we're going to hope for the best. What do you think? Is it going to work? I don't know. We will make sure that if it doesn't, I cut this part out of the video. Alright, here's our bread pudding. As you can see, a little bit of it gets stuck to it, but that's natural. It's going to happen sometimes to you. So you can do a little bread pudding surgery and sort of paste it together, which is not hard. And remember, we're going to flip this over when we serve it. So I'm going to show you how to do that now. Get yourself a nice bowl. And in this case, it's this beautiful white bowl that we have right here. And we're going to cut a piece. This portion is probably good for about 9 servings. So knowing that, that would mean that we're going to make 2 cuts this way and then 2 cuts this way. So we're going to make one of the cuts right here. And this works really well with a nice clean knife. And I want you to be sure that you can see what I'm doing. And then I'm going to make another cut right here. And this is going to be one portion. So you want to be careful. You want to bring it up and you want to flip it in your hand. And you can see that beautiful color. And then we're going to put it on our plate. We're going to move this out of the way so you can really see what we're doing here. And then there's a few things you can do here. Remember, we made that awesome caramel sauce and then we saved some for this part. So in order to make it really decadent and holiday-like, we saved some of that caramel sauce. And we're gonna drizzle a little bit on top of it, just a little bit. And then I had some good vanilla bean ice cream in the fridge. We're gonna crown it with a scoop of vanilla bean ice cream. And to make it healthy, I have some blackberries. I'm putting them on the side. I think maybe here you can see what I'm doing here. And I'm gonna put a little bit of a powdered sugar on them because it just creates that cool holiday-like look to them. And then we're gonna pick them up gently and we're gonna place them on our dessert in any angle that you want. And this is it. This is our pumpkin caramel bread pudding that's awesome for the holidays. I hope you enjoy it. And as you can see, it's not hard to make. It looks great. And even if you flip it and it looks a little funky, nobody has to know that except you. All right, this is it. This is our bread pudding, caramel bread pudding with pumpkin. Perfect for the holiday season. We drizzled some caramel that we made. It's made with that Hawaiian bread. It's awesome. A little vanilla bean ice cream. I didn't show you how to make that. You can just buy that yourselves. Maybe someday I will. And I have to tell you that I tasted a little bit of the crumb that fell off when I flipped it, and it's really, really good. So I'm looking forward to this bite. The caramel, because of the ice cream, gets nice and crunchy too. So you're gonna break through it, which gives you another layer of texture. So I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, it's great. I just think that all bread pudding from now on should be made with Hawaiian bread because it is so good. It's like a dessert within a dessert. So I really hope that you make this for the holidays. And please subscribe to my show. This is A Seat at My Table. This is Chef Luis Sanchez checking out. And I hope to see you guys here next week.